to the BioCharisma podcast. Here's your host, Christopher Gardner.
Good day, my BioCharismites. This is your host, Christopher Gardner. Welcome back to another podcast. This week we have Mike Williams on again, my cognitive dissonance extraordinaire. He and I had to have a little brainstorming session on the current events. We filmed this at the end of March, so obviously Prince's death hadn't occurred yet, but we've had other conversations since this podcast, and the rabbit hole keeps getting deeper and deeper. The reason why I bring this type of subject matter up from an empowering perspective is, unless you know what's happening in your environment, you can't be responsible. So Mike is such a great dude to have on because he's aware of all these little shenanigans that are going on, but yet he doesn't lose perspective. It's not like, the sky is falling or anything like that. He's just a wonderful ally to have in the search for knowledge. So our bumper music is supplied from Alien Irio. It's from the ground up. I love her music. And if you like what we're doing here, like us on Facebook and also subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher. So enjoy the podcast. Thank you.
Good day, BioCharisma family. We are back with Mr. Mike Williams. We had him on a few episodes ago to talk to us about hypnosis and cognitive dissonance and just how we perceive the world. And Mike, it's great to have you back. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Christopher. Thank you for having me back on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Have you thawed out at all up there? Is it still cold or is it warming up? What's going on in spring up there in North Carolina?
It's doing well. Today's going to be about 80 degrees and sunny, so it's springtime. Wow. It's springtime here in North Carolina.
Well, I wanted to just talk to you. I respect you so much, and this particular podcast is just going to be you and I brainstorming. I've had just this amazing epiphany, and I want to share it with you. The main thing is, with all the different interviews I've been doing and the different research of these people that I really respect in their fields, what I'm seeing is what was causing so much cognitive dissonance in me when I was younger, when I was being exposed to the way policymakers make policy, was I had no historical perspective. So everything seemed like it was new to me. Like the question of how could these things be happening was basically sponsored by the feeling of this is new. But the more I'm learning, the more I'm recognizing there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, almost all of these agendas that are out there, that are step downs from the oligarchs, it's like, this is like the policy that's being implemented around the world right now is really the same old story. How do you see things, like when you look at current events, how do you see things that are going on?
Well, I think you're exactly right. There's nothing new about what's going on. The oppression of humanity has been going on for thousands of years. And the only difference that we have today is that the technology obviously is far more advanced. So they're able to suppress humanity and control humanity now by other means other than bloodshed and wars and killing and murdering and everything else. Now they can do it electronically with surveillance, with electromagnetic frequencies, getting people to their mind-body dynamic to slow down because of the GMOs and the fluoride in the water and the aspartame and the soft drinks and so on. So what we have today is almost like a slow kill, or a very passive-aggressive way in order to keep humanity from uprising and becoming very aware. So, but your point about, is this something that's new? Excuse me, or is this something that's been going on for years? It's been something that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years.
It's really interesting. I came across the term democide a few years ago when listening to John Lash's work. And he was very big in exposing the patriarchy and all the different tyrannical things that the patriarchy had done throughout time immemorial. And even though I don't agree with all of his work, when he was talking about democide, it really struck a chord with me, because democide is genocide by government or genocide by the state.
Right.
And there's this theme in my life, and I want to talk to you about it. This theme is the theme of the parasite, okay? So whether it's a psychic or spiritual parasite in the form of some sort of belief system that doesn't suit you, or an actual, entity that is like, like a succubus, or whether it's a parasitical entity such as, let's say, inflation, something that is always siphoning off of you at the detriment of you, right? Or whether it's a physical parasite like flukes or nematodes in your system, or the some sort of flesh-eating parasite. You have this thing that I keep seeing, and I don't know if it's just my consciousness and my projection about the parasite. There's organisms and entities out there that consistently draw off of the host. And I'm wondering if this is just nature, if this is just something in the physical plane that we have to deal with, or if there's something deeper, if it's on a spiritual perspective, if we're here to learn how to be parasite free. Like I'm really I just want to brainstorm with you about this. Like, what do you think about what I'm talking about with the parasite?
Well, I definitely believe that there is a parasitical force that is in play. And I also believe that here on Earth we have this duality. And that this duality is how our souls, when they incarnate, how they learn. And Earth is a very, very tough, challenging, difficult school. And but setting that aside, because I don't want people to think this is kind of a new age type of way of explaining this. If I take it to the next level, I do believe, though, that if we do not get our heads wrapped around the fact that there is true evil in the world, that there is this parasitical entity, that we could tip the scales of the balance of the duality on Earth, and we can really make this place a lot worse than it's supposed to be, or it was intended to be. And I think that that's all fair game when we talk about from a metaphysical perspective, because this is a realm of a dimension in which we reside, and when we incarnate, we come here. So if in this dimension, in this sandbox, if we as a collective do not get our consciousness in the right direction, then we will tip that scale over to the side of darkness more and more. And things could get, and the way things are going, will get a lot worse before things, in my view, get any better. On one of the shows at Sophia, maybe you listened to, we talked about the fact that one of the things that the elites do, that's part of this parasite, this pathogen that infects the mind, is they understand very clearly the metaphysical realms. They know all about this stuff, whereas the average person knows nothing about metaphysics, and the closest they get to a spiritual type of base or a spiritual type of connectivity is to go to church. And you and I both know religion is not spirituality. Spirituality is not religion. So what they do, Christopher, is they manipulate the consciousness. And because your thoughts create your reality, that's how things manifest. Things manifest through thought. Everything that's around us, everything that's around you where you are, everything that's around me where I am, initiated with a thought. Somebody had to, like behind me you see some guitars. Somebody had to have a thought about what that guitar would look like, what hardware components would go into it. That's how that guitar manifested. The door behind me had to manifest a certain way, had to have a certain design, a certain way to manufacture it, certain materials, and so on. The controllers understand that your thoughts create your reality. So what they do is they steer your thoughts. And by steering your thoughts, they're steering your consciousness. And they are pushing humanity to manifest their reality. They're steering and driving people toward their end game. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the masses in this population have fallen into the trap, and they don't even realize they're in a trap, and they're going along for the ride. And that's why we're seeing the things we're seeing today. When people keep asking, why is everything so dysfunctional? Why is it that there just seems to be so much evil permeating society? Well, it's because you're contributing toward it. And they don't understand that.
This is the thing, right? Sophia and I had a really good conversation yesterday, and I'll be posting that podcast later this week. It seems like the technocracy and the satanic, I guess you would say, agenda, which when I say satanic, this is what I mean. I'm not coming from the Christian perspective. I'm coming from the perspective of the Gnostics looked at the demiurge or the satanic energy as being that which co-opts the good and uses the good against itself. And I've seen this over and over and over again, where you have really good people with good intentions that have bad information, so they make bad decisions.
Right.
So, it's not enough just to be good, And what I see is in technocracy, the majority of the different technologies that are being, promoted that are out there to increase the bottom line for many of these corporations, almost all the technologies are antibiotic. We don't need more cell phone towers. We don't need, more cars burning gasoline. We don't need almost all the little gadgetry that's out there, because almost all this stuff is going to end up having negative effects on our physiology. So, like you said, we have this sort of anti-human agenda through co-optation, through the convincing medium, like you said, also that, there's no such thing as evil. The big brother can take care of everything. Government will protect you. And it's amazing, my friend. I mean, I keep seeing in like a smaller microcosmic pictures in relationships, like I see so many people, especially in my sphere of influence, that whenever we start talking about bigger picture stuff where there's a lot of conspiratorial energy in it, almost all the women that will be in the space will check out. and the men will talk about it, and it's like then I'll hear my female friends say, I don't want to give my attention to the negative side of things, and
right.
And I'll be like, wait a minute. You are totally under the assumption that something other than the men in your life are going to protect you. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, for real. You can check out because you feel like you're protected.
Right.
You actually feel like the big brother or the state or whatever, that's like the surrogate father figure, the surrogate husband figure now, right? So, because I've seen so many of my male friends get ridiculed for actually looking into these types of things, right?
Right.
And the female energy in their life will be like, oh no, and they'll be going to the more I guess you would say lighter side of life, which I can see the balance. I can see everybody needs the balance. Everybody needs to have your healthy food. You have to have your exercise. You have to smell the flowers when you can. But I feel as a protector bear, like I feel like this momentum in my being to warn people. Like, that's a chemtrail for real. Like, look at it.
Yeah.
Like, you and I are both seeing the same thing. That is a chemtrail. Like, or like, no, do not spray glyphosate on your farm. Like, glyphosate, why do you think there's such a high level of retardation? Like, it's just like there's such obvious things, and it gets so frustrating. And what I notice is just good people are co-opted into believing this positivistic way of things. Like if I just bury my head in the sand, maybe it won't happen to me. I mean, I don't know what it is. Like, well, what have you been seeing up there in the States?
Well, let me just back up a second. You talked about the women sometimes, they'll back away and say, well, that's very negative and I don't really want to deal with that. I don't want to give that my attention. But and I'll take it a step further. I will say that that's not just women. What I see in the truth movement, in the alternative research movement, Christopher, is I see people in general doing that when they listen to somebody who is a supposed leader or an empowering voice in the movement. And I'm not going to name any names. Just pick whoever it is that, people listen to and like to listen to. And they'll listen to that person, and that person will say certain things and position things a certain way, which will make it sound like everything's going to be okay. Like there's one person right now that's very prominent and has been for many years who's talking about a gigantic golden cloud of energy, which is going to encompass the earth. And that is going to change everything. It's going to change the consciousness of the planet, and everything is just going to be great because of this big golden cloud of energy. And so what happens is that puts people in a false comfort zone.
It pacifies them.
It pacifies them. It's savior mentality. There's no difference between saying Jesus is going to come to save us or aliens are going to come save us. This time, instead of Jesus and aliens, we have a big golden cloud of energy. So I think in general, many people fall into the trap where they become passive that way. It's a way of getting them to disengage and disconnect from dealing with the issues. It's like even when you talked about the chemtrails, a lot of people are aware of chemtrails, but even the people who are very aware and sit there all day and post pictures and stuff on Facebook about geoengineering and chemtrails, you have to ask yourself, what are they really doing other than sitting in front of their computer all day and putting pictures up of chemtrails on Facebook? Many of them, what they do is they rely on the quote-unquote leaders in the movement to be able to move the ball forward. Right. And honestly, I know a lot of these folks are working very, very hard to move the ball forward, but look, let's face it, it's not moving forward at a rate and pace in which it's going to make change quickly, or if ever. And the point I'm trying to make is I'm not knocking the people who are the leaders in the geoengineering chemtrail movement I'm not knocking them. What I'm saying is they need more help. They need more help. Right. And they need help from the people who were sitting there saying, oh, Michael Murphy's got that. Oh, Dane Wigington's going to that conference. He's got that. And then the people who should be helping and chipping in and doing something, what are they doing? They're going to Walmart and buying, clothes or picking something up at the store. That's it. So I know some people are probably going to get really agitated that I'm saying this because, it's a lot of people don't want to hear this. But my experience, Christopher, having, done this for quite a while now is this is what I'm seeing. And I'm just picking on chemtrails and geoengineering as an example, but you can pick any area of alternative research or any conspiracy research topic, and you'll see the exact same thing taking place.
Yeah, I can imagine. The nice thing about, and I'm not tooting your horn or my own horn, but in a way I am, just because I find myself an effective human being. I much rather hang out with inventors than scientists. I much rather hang out with doers and talkers, right?
Right.
So like you talk about mind control, because guess what? You're a fucking expert. Like you actually deal with that, with hypnotism and, doing regression therapy, all these types of things. Like you're a doer. I build orgone accumulators and pulse DC battery chargers and domes and thermoionic conversion in my rocket stoves. Like I actually do stuff, right? I massage people. Everything is a manual chiral experience, right? And so what I start to notice about the people that I can feel that they've been compromised or I can feel their agenda, there's a few things that I notice. The first thing is they look unhealthy. It's very obvious. If I've become sort of a healthist. Yeah. I had one of the people I respect the most, actually two of the people I respect the most a few years ago when I was really overweight. It was really funny. I was at a communal dinner and I was talking and I was totally talking out of my ass and they were both looking at me and then I was like, well, why you guys are really dismissive. Like, what's happening? And they were both kind of looking at me. And then my friend Derek goes, I don't listen to fat people. and, I was like so offended, I was like, totally coming out of the new age. I lived in an ashram. I was like, I could get offended about anything.
Wow.
And I was like, and when you looked at this man, he did everything that he said he would do. He lived in integrity.
Right.
He knew what he was talking about. And in fact, he was right. Specifically with me, he should not have been listening to me at that time. And we ended up becoming really close friends. And I'm not saying don't listen to fat people. I'm just saying that you can kind of tell if a person has discipline or not. People that are undisciplined usually don't take care of themselves. If they don't have enough dignity to take care of themselves physically, how are they going to take care of themselves psychically, emotionally, spiritually?
Spiritually, right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
There's going to be a compromise.
Right.
They will get compromised. Because remember, the energy that we're talking about that's antithetical to life, it does everything it can to co-opt your energy. It takes good people, gives them bad information so they make bad decisions. It's that simple, right? It's
right.
really that simple. Because most of the good people I know on this planet are naive as all get out, right? They're really under like the superhero mentality that's, foisted in movies of like, oh yeah, Iron Man or Superman or Spider-Man, some Wonder Woman, everybody's coming to save us, besides ourselves, right?
Right.
So it totally snuffs out that our own divine spark, the Christos, the Gnostics, the pre-Christian Gnostics talked about Christ was within all of us, right? But you only access Christ by going through hell. What does that mean? You have to be willing to look at the hell that's around you and have courage. You actually literally have to be willing to die for the truth. And I know that might sound dramatic, but if you're just all, lovey-dovey and like, oh, look, it's all puppy dogs and ice cream and, the Audi's coming out with a new R8 and hey, their SpaceX is taking us here and there and like you believe the technocratic push of materialism, in all honesty, it's just being lazy. It's like spiritually being, obese. Like you're just not doing the work. You're actually not aware of what is actually happening. And so for me, the biggest hurdle, especially with my friends and loved ones, is how can I present information in a way that doesn't get their defenses turned up. It's either that, or do I really only give attention to people that find me somewhat as a role model, right?
Right.
Because if they find me as a role model and they want to know what I have and want to know what I do, then they're open. Their field is open to my field. But in other times, like I'm not like wasting my time trying to convince anybody of anything anymore. Like those days, like it's just a waste of time. It's like this real like huge, there's just a break. Like I can't even tell you how many times I've actually pointed something out physically. Something that was physically able to be seen, and the people just really just switch off. I actually had a friend of mine say, Christopher, he actually calls me Gardner. He's like, Gardner, I can't do this right now. He literally told, like his soul just switched off. It was like, I can't go there right now. With what I want to do, I cannot go there right now. Do you see that happening with a lot? Like I've never been in the truth movement per se. Like I'm just new to doing interviews and podcasts and stuff. But have you seen, you've been in this for a while now, have you seen there's like a sort of this co-optation that I'm speaking of? Have you seen that? Has that been readily in your awareness?
I definitely think that there's co-opting taking place. And it goes back to what we said in the beginning of the conversation. We said that what we're seeing today is not new. It's been going on for thousands of years. And so the co-opting of these movements, whether it be geoengineering, whether it be vaccines, name it. You're always going to have you're going to have that element which has been put there in order to distract, to derail, to marginalize the truth. And do I see it? I see it all the time, Christopher. And in fact, you and I had a little bit of a discussion about this before we got the show going here. And I'm not going to name any names. People can go figure it out for themselves. But, I'm seeing a lot of people in the movement today that many would consider the leaders or empowering voices. And I'm starting to see agendas. That's what I'm starting to see. And I'm being dead serious. I'm seeing this stuff rolling out and playing out now. And what's happening is it's causing more of a fracture, more of a fragmentation of pursuing the truth. Because now some of these folks who were the quote unquote leaders that people were following, they're starting to take their sheep off into another direction, and the direction that they're taking them off into many times, I don't see it as very productive. I mean, I try to see it for what it is, and some people could say I'm wrong, and maybe I am. But I'm just giving you my honest assessment. I mean, I do a lot of interviews, I talk to a lot of people, I do a lot of research, and these are the things that I'm seeing.
Do you mind if I share a personal anecdote
about
that?
Yeah.
Because this was a very big, I'm going through a 10-year cycle right now. So I just turned 40. When I was 30, I lived in an ashram, and we had a guru. And this man had integrity beyond belief, total integrity. And he did everything. He walked the line. And at the time, this was the first time I ever got in touch with the deep, dark spiritual elements that were at play, because he had a psychotic break. And the entity that ended up residing in him, during his psychotic break, it left room, it left space, and nature abhors a vacuum. And this thing that came in him and was in him for quite a while, till none of us chose to be around him anymore. It was so divisive. It was so destructive. It completely and utterly co-opted his consciousness to the point where there was I watched not only my guru, my best friend, a person that I love deeply, really go AWOL. And it put me in a 10-year tailspin. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And it wasn't like a bad tailspin. It was just that I had supreme devotion. Now I know my devotion was pure, and it was innocent, and it was naive, but it was going in the wrong. It wasn't going where it needed to go, right?
Right.
But this is how these spiritual forces work. The more I'm looking into this on a larger scale, I just see that the same spiritual force is working its way in almost everything. It finds the weakest link in the chain, right? Like you could be like 99% enlightened, let's say, but let's say your downfall is, you like, ho-ho, Twinkies. So somehow, some way, you're going to get candida, and then you're going to get inflammation from that candida, and then you got, prions and, parasites, and before you know it, you can't think.
Right.
And then it makes room. So it's really one of these things, like, if you don't know what you're fighting against, you have absolutely zero chance in the fight.
Right.
It's like if you bring a knife to a gunfight, guess what? You're dead.
Right.
And I really think that's what's happening right now. I think, like you're saying, like you got these leaders in the movement that are saying, no, we're in a knife fight. No, we're actually not even in a fight. We're all wearing Nerf gloves. When the enemy really is willing to destroy you and your whole family from now through eternity. And this might be a little bit heavy and deep for people, but I've literally come in contact. I've personally stood face to face with the entity that had co-opted my teacher. And it is not, there's no loving this thing. This thing does not love you. It
Right.
does not. There's no, you cannot negotiate with it. Right?
That's right.
And so I'm just like trying to eliminate the naivety from my friends, because it's so sweet in a way, right? Like the other night I was in ceremony and I saw a bunch of healers, a bunch of like angels, these women that were in the group, and they were literally angels that night. And I could see the way the light was traveling down to them, and I could see that there was no distortion in their field. Those people cannot know about what I know, because it would perturb them in such a way that they couldn't do their healing work. So I had great insight into saying, oh, okay, certain people need to know this. The protectors need to know this, and then they need to implement plans to allow there to be an effective defense, right? But then there are other people that have the distortions in their field that are unwilling to actually hear or really dive into the truth. And this is like, it's the total castration of the male energy within the social construct. Like, have you seen that where you're at from your vantage point?
What I see, Christopher, and I think this is on the same thread you're on, and I've explained this on a couple of shows, and to friends and family, by the way. There is a metaphysical, spiritual aspect to existence, unseen forces, good and bad, that many people do not understand. They don't even understand that it exists. They don't even understand it's at play, and they have no clue that the people who are bringing evil into this world are fully versed on the metaphysical aspects of existence. And if we take a look at a lot of the folks that are in the alternative research and the truth movement, they don't understand it either. So what happens is, because they don't understand it, they're only seeing half the picture. But the problem is they don't know what it is that they don't know. So the analogy that I use is, you're doing a particular type of research, or you're in a particular type of truth movement, and you're running with the football, and you think the field is 50 yards. And so, you're closing in on the 50-yard line. You're thinking, I'm just about there, because when I get to that 50-yard line, I'm going to win. And then they get to the 50-yard line, and they're standing there, and they're pounding their chest, I did it, or we're just about there. They're not even close, because they're not seeing the other 50 yards. And the other 50 yards has to do with the unseen forces. It has to do with metaphysics. It has to do with spirituality. It has to do with other dimensions. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where the controllers, they understand this every which way from Sunday. This is what they've been doing for thousands upon thousands of years. This is how they're able to manipulate humanity, because they know that the average person, the average researcher, even those that are really, really smart in their field, many of them don't understand that piece of the puzzle. And as long as you don't know that it's there, then it doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, you don't go there. And if you don't go there, you're not going to address anything. You're not going to fix anything. You're never really going to get to the end game. And like I said, unfortunately, when you start to talk to people about metaphysics and you start talking to them about spirituality, going back to what you were saying before, they just click, they turn you off. A lot of people, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to deal with it. If they're religious, if it cuts across the indoctrination of their particular religion, they turn you off. You have a lot of people out there that are atheists. They turn you off. And this is why trying to get this place upright and get things back on the track that it's supposed to be on is extremely difficult. And I get asked a lot, people will say, well, that doesn't sound very hopeful, Mike. Are you saying that change is not right around the corner? And I'm like, it's exactly what I'm saying. Change is not right around the corner.
Right?
Right? So it's not going
Yeah.
to change next week. It's not going to change next month. It's not going to change a year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, as long as the vast majority of humanity operates the way it's operating. If we can get critical mass, where people understand that their consciousness is being manipulated, if they can understand that and that not allow their consciousness, not allow their thoughts to go in the direction of evil, then we will start seeing change. But as long as people are following leaders, as long as they're following agendas, as long as they are believing in stuff that they shouldn't believe in, we are going to continue to have a very, very difficult time getting things where they're supposed to be.
I totally agree. And this is the whole thing, like at least in the Christian model, is to not bear false witness, right? So if we have to access the Christ energy within, the Christos energy within, and only within, like we have to walk, all of us have to walk our own path through the darkness. And then we find the courage to do that. This is a very, very personal path, right? So I think a lot of things, like even though we have the World Wide Web and we can connect and do all these other things, in a way it's making connection extremely superficial, because anything that gets over inundated, whenever you can have too much of anything, it almost lessens the value of it.
Right.
So the whole scarcity model in economics is that if you make something scarce, you can charge more for it. But if you want to devalue something, you just oversaturate the market. Well, now communication is completely oversaturated. So people actually will diffuse the importance of communication, because at any moment in time, you can hear a million voices, right?
Right.
So this is destroying interpersonal connection. There's this notion called optionality that he wrote The Black Swan and Anti-Fragile. I'm forgetting his name. He's a great author. But he talks about in consciousness, like the way group dynamics work, it comes down to optionality. Like if you have lots of options, you have not that much loyalty, right?
Right.
So right now, information is more entertainment based than it is actually applicable to one's life, right?
Right.
That's why I was saying earlier, I really appreciate inventors much more than scientists, because an inventor, somebody that actually practices their craft and puts it physically in, like, where the rubber meets the road, that type of being is much more effective, because they're testing everything with all their senses. Like you said, they have the whole picture, because they're taking in something conceptual that could be seen as spiritual, then they're bringing it through the idea matrix of the mind, and then they actually make it physically. That is something to behold, right? There's balance in that. But when you have just like everybody's parroting everybody else's information, it just becomes it becomes bullshit. It becomes just this whole medley of inaction. This is sort of why I'm like totally going the flat Earth route, because what's happening with me with my flat Earth research is it's causing me to be experimental again.
Right.
It's causing me to engage my senses. And I never understood Einstein. I never understood gravity. All the different teachers. I even talked to supposed NASA scientists about this in like 2007, 2008 at these tech conferences that I would go to. Nobody could explain it. No, none of it ever made sense to me. And then I was getting into the spiral dynamics of our solar system relative to the spiral dynamics of our galaxy. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. How can an astrolabe, something that's in two dimensions, because I'm an amateur astrologer, how can I take an astrolabe that's thousands of years old and use an astrolabe and actually accurately depict where all the stars are, at least in our night sky, if we're hurling through space at these speeds? Like, it makes no, like, my mind, what it would end up doing to me is I would default to the position that I'm an idiot. I would have this internal strife going, oh my God, I'm just too stupid. Like, because I'm not understanding this. I'm the dumb one.
Yeah, you're not
what
an
I'm
expert. Saying? Yeah, you're a dummy.
Precisely.
Right.
And my goodness, this has been so freeing, because everything that I've been witnessing in my star watching days points to exactly what's being revealed now. And so I think in 2 days I'm going to be interviewing Eric Dubay, and I can't wait to talk to him about all this stuff. But this is like a really, really wonderful thing that's happening right now, is the fact that there is this massive amount of information that any person who has eyes to see can see, that is fundamental to our cosmology. And before we started to record, you and I were talking about why. Why is it important for people to actually have the correct cosmology? And I'm of the opinion that it's because our cosmology drives our wants and our desires. Like if my cosmology is one of infinite space and Big Bang, and all I do is watch science fiction movies my entire life thinking that's where hope lies, as a little boy, I'm going to want to be an astronaut. That is a complete satanic ideal, in the sense that they've co-opted my energy, and all my hopes and dreams are into something that cannot occur.
Right.
They have siphoned my energy into something that is impossible. It's going into a dead end.
That's exactly right.
And this is where I see the power, the power of co-optation, and like the movement in which I really feel that the whatever energy that's antithetical to life that's out there, I really feel its biggest weapon against us is wasting our time. That's what it wants. Waste our time. Waste our time. How do you see it?
I 100% agree with you, Christopher. I had mentioned on a show with Oli, I said, Oli, everything that's worth knowing is a lie, period. And many people can't get their heads wrapped around that. Oh, they wouldn't lie about that. Why would they lie about this? And people go on and they try to defend the lies. And we talked about the flat earth. And I just want to make one point here before I get into that a little bit more. Look, I don't want to receive any emails from anybody in the truth movement about things that I'm looking into, okay? I don't tell you what to look into. Don't tell me what to look into. I'm a critical thinker. I'm a free thinker. I'm going to research the things that interest me and pique my interest, and I'm going to pursue those things. If later on I decide that, I've gone as far as I can go with it, and I'm going to make a decision as to whether I'm going to pursue it or go elsewhere, I'm going to do that. I don't need your help to preempt that process, okay? So,
hallelujah.
And so I say that because I every once in a while I will get these emails, and these communiques will come in, and I'm not going to say who these people are, and it's not one person. I've had multiple people do this, and I think to myself, look, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, okay? Because the reason why I'm bringing this up, Christopher, is like what you were saying. People are following these so-called leaders, and these leaders could be pointing them to a place where there is no outcome. You're going to be put into a vast wasteland of nothingness when you actually believe there is something there. It's like, they talk about today, these days, it's the information age. But people don't realize that information could be good, it could be bad, and it's indifferent. It's everything in between. There's a reason why they don't call it the age of knowledge or the age of wisdom, right? It's just the information age. It's another one of those words that you can interpret it the way you want to interpret it. Information is good. Information is truthful. So I'm in the information age. When in reality is the information that's put out there is put out there by the very people that want to detour you. They want to disconnect you from reality. They want to disconnect you from the truth. They want to keep you from making a revelation to yourself and saying, oh my God, the whole thing's a lie. And these are the things I've got to do personally and spiritually, because there is a physical and non-physical component to existence. It's not just physical, folks. And as long as you continue to believe it's just physical, like I was saying before, I know it's like a broken record, you're not going to optimize your existence here in this incarnation in life. You're just not going to. And what's going to wind up happening is you're going to have to incarnate again. And you're going to have to learn the lessons that you should have learned in the previous life or the life before that or the life before that. That's how the cycle works. Now, a lot of folks, they don't believe in reincarnation. It's the philosophy and it's the belief system that I have, and I have a lot of proof in the work that I do to back up that reincarnation is exactly how it works. So,
Yeah, could you get into that a little bit, because you do regression therapy, right?
yeah, do regression therapy, past life regressions, between life regressions, and the way it works, Christopher, is you get somebody into a very, very deep trance state. It's a very deep theta trance state. And when you're in that very, very deep trance state, what happens is you go into expanded consciousness. And when we talk about expanded consciousness, what I mean is that think of your current state of consciousness, your waking state, is just what's going on right now. It's the world you know that goes on around you. It's the physical aspects of what's going on. But when you go into expanded consciousness, the aperture of that camera opens up. Think of it as like a radio dial on a radio, and you tune to a certain station, like the old-fashioned radios. You'd have to actually tune something in to get the right radio station, the frequency. But if you turned left and you turned right, you would go to other stations. You would move to other frequencies. And this is what happens when you go into very deep hypnosis, into very deep trance state, and you regress back into those memories when you're in that deep theta state. You're actually opening up these other frequencies. And when you do that, you can go back and you can visit other lives, other experiences. You can go into the spirit world. You can visit in the spirit world. You can do all these things. And I've been in practice for 6 years now, and I've done tons of these types of sessions, and I've had them myself. So it's not just me being the practitioner, but I've also been the client, and it's an amazing experience. And these are the experiences that are kept from us, because the controllers know what we're capable of. They know that this is a normal state of functioning within consciousness of the human, but they don't allow you to go there. They'll teach you that that stuff is woo-woo stuff, that you're just an imaginative little kid when you're a little child and you're having certain experiences. They keep you from having that experience, and they shut it down. And they try to shut it down as early as they possibly can, so that you go through most of your adult life oblivious to the fact that there's a lot more out there than what you're exposed to or to what you have been taught and told. But by doing the work that I do, this really opens up a whole different chapter in what people's existence and lives are really about. And when my clients come to me and they have these sessions, Christopher, every one of them, when they emerge from that session, will have this look of wonderment in their eyes. Like, what?
I bet.
What was that? What was that? That was unbelievable. That was amazing. So, look, the point I'm trying to make is it's more than what you think it is, and you need to explore that piece of it, which is more, because then you're going to find that you're going to have a more fulfilling life. You're going to be able to better navigate your life, because you're going to see all the dots and you'll be able to connect them. Right now, you're only seeing a couple of dots when there's thousands of dots out there. So anyway,
Right.
Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me, because I'm an amateur astrologer, right? And so the pseudoscientific world would have me believe that what I'm giving my attention to is so stupid. There's no proof in it whatsoever.
Right.
Yet the actual tangible experience of going through somebody's real constellation star chart and seeing the tendencies, and it's irrefutable. I mean, there's been hundreds of people that I've been with now, and and I'm not even all that good yet. I can't wait till I'm actually good, right?
Yep.
Like, it's undeniable. And what happens to I'll just say what happened to me is, like, it humbled me beyond belief. And that's another reason why I'm so into the flat earth, is because my old questions with astrology were like, wait a minute. These lights that are in the sky probably aren't there anymore, because it's taken 17,000 light years to get here. And how something that's might be dead and so far away, how is it actually affecting me? Because it is affecting me. Like, I am a Piscean man with Virgo rising. I have every single mythological characteristic of that. Nobody can refute it. Like, that's exactly who I am.
Right.
Like, and And I was just confused because my cosmology was such that it was like, oh, well, no, you see all those planets and stars and all this stuff that's so far away, gravity, you know, antimatter, dark matter, string theory, chaos, all this stuff, like Big Bang. I'm like, wait, no, there has to be an order in the universe. I actually feel the order.
Right.
I fall into that line, and I'm a willful person. That takes a lot for me to admit. That takes a lot of humbling for me to say, "Oh no, I'm not in total control of this thing." Right?
Right.
I totally bought that movie The Secret, like hook, line, and sinker when it came out. I'm the manifester of my reality. But what I noticed is the same people that have that positivistic framework, they actually deny. They come from somewhat of a solipsistic state where they actually think that they're the only influence in the universe. So what it does is it makes them completely narcissistic.
Right.
Where when you actually see in the stars, like, wait a minute, this transit's occurring right now, and this is going to affect your relationship this way, and their jaw just drops because they're like, how did you know that? Like, it's like, well, it's connected. Like, it's totally connected. And the neat thing about the flat Earth is the stars are more of what the ancients told us they are. They're the portals to heaven. They're portals to that energy that is technically right above us. The ancient Gnostics actually said the night sky was our larger mind.
Right.
So it was like, wow, this has a much, much more profound effect, not believing that, we're some spinning ball hurtling through space, in some chaos space. And this kind of brings me to this whole notion of chaos. And you and I keep touching on this, and I know you have to go soon, so I'll be quick with this, is that you have to at some point interview Tracy Twyman, because I've been reading her work, and she gets really into the character known as Baphomet. And she's able to chronicle how many of the Masonic orders, many of the Templar orders, many of the different secret societies that are out there that actually shape policy. These people are movers and shakers on the planet. It cannot be refuted. They all pretty much give their energy to this particular creature, this spiritual entity named Baphomet. And Baphomet is from her studies, Baphomet is the archetype of chaos. Like when you see in the tarot, when you see Baphomet, it's an androgynous being with a goat head that's pointing down and up, as above, so below type thing. And there's tons and tons of work out there that actually describes what this archetype is. And so when you see transhumanism, when you see the actual combination of all cultures into no culture, you know what I'm saying? Like with globalism, how that works, how all of these beautiful cultures that used to be around the world are going away because everybody's now becoming one thing. Androgyny now, they're talking about with genetics, how like if, hey, one day you want to be a man, you can be a man. Another day you can be a woman, like it just seems like when there are no boundaries and there are no definitions, that is what chaos is. And even in the New Age sect of things, they're always talking about, oh, we're all one, yada yada yada. And I'm like, no. If we're all one, that means we're a monocrop. Have you ever stood inside of a monocrop? You don't hear any birds or bugs because there are none. You stand in a fucking rainforest, and guess what? The reason why it's a rainforest is because of the diversity. There's definition. There's actual, like, love the fact that you're different. Don't be so engaged in this notion of, oh, we're all one, we all share. No, it's total crap. And if what Tracy is saying is true, that there is the policymakers out there give their time and attention and allegiance to this particular entity, Baphomet, the whole push of technocracy, the whole push of economics, all these things would be leading to chaos. It's the complete Joker archetype. And when you look at the people that play Joker in Hollywood, they end up killing themselves. They end up like really checking out because it's a really terrible archetype. Have you seen any of this in your experience?
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to Baphomet, just for, I did a show with Sophia on Baphomet, and one of the things I proposed was that Baphomet is neither good nor bad, that Baphomet represents the duality of existence, and I'm oversimplifying this, so for folks that are listening to this, I'm not going to get into great detail. You can actually listen to my Baphomet show with Sophia. But it's Baphomet represents man's pursuit of enlightenment through spiritual alchemy. And so what's happened is, in my view, Christopher, just playing on that theme, is that the controllers, it's like anything else that they do. They take symbols, they take sigils, they take things that would have been used maybe in divine magic, and they've made it black magic, and they've turned it upside down, and they're using it to their benefit. It's like one time I was in a very spiritual session. I was very deep in trance, and I was with my spirit guide, and we talked about the question I had asked was, is energy good or is energy bad? Is it good energy, bad energy? And he said to me, energy is like electricity, Mike. Is electricity good or bad? It's just electricity. The goodness or the badness is determined by the application, the use. So, I mean, going back to the Baphomet and a lot of these symbols and these sigils, this is what I believe that they are doing. I mean, they're exploiting the magic in order to take reality where they want it. And so that's why a lot of what you're seeing with this transhumanism and all that stuff, yes, I mean, all this stuff is like we talk about Baphomet being androgynous. And we're seeing a lot of transhumanism played into androgyny. What they're doing is that they're getting the focus and the attention of the masses onto this symbolism. And in their minds, the way they operate with their magic is that if your thoughts and your focus is on their symbolism, then your thoughts are being steered in the direction in which they want to take you and the rest of humanity. This is why they do what they do. This is why the whole Bruce Jenner thing. Look at Bruce Jenner. He's Baphomet. He's got male plumbing. He's got women's breasts. Okay? So and so what they do is they make a big circus out of it, and everybody's looking at it and saying, oh, this is a joke, or oh, I'm really intrigued by it. But at the end of the day, the intent is to have you focus on him and to be focused on what they want that symbolism to mean and where they want that symbolism to take you. This is why we're seeing this stuff. We also see it with Miley Cyrus. So again, if you want to hear, the rest of that, you can listen to the show I did with Sophia. That's to the audience.
Yeah, now I remember that show. It's really amazing because I do agree with you. It's the whole notion of co-optation that we're talking about. Like,
exactly.
They'll take something, but I am starting, like, in my own spiritual practice. I work with a lot of the plant medicines and the mainly ayahuasca, and what the DMT does for you is it opens up your portal of perception. It increases your visual acuity 300%, your auditory acuity by 400%. So you end up seeing a lot more of what's actually around you. My spirit guide in that, she is very, very adamant about showing me how duality works and how that manifests in physical reality. But this is where I'm going with all this, is it's making me absolutely more spiritual. It's actually making me draw the line in the sand. Whereas in the past, when I lived in the ashram, I took the line out of the sand because I was Zen. There is no sand, right? But now I'm really seeing, no. There is actual harm that is occurring. I am watching harm occur against people's will. It's happening. I cannot deny it. I cannot put my head in the sand. What is the actual way in which I can combat this? What is my function? Where do I need to gain courage to be able to face the reality of things? Because I don't want suffering. I don't want people I know and love to suffer. I don't want them to suffer against their own will, so my guides have been showing me, well, you have to be aware of that which is actually causing these things. And there is a context. There is a spiritual domain that really uses this type of energy to its benefit.
Right.
And it's back to the whole parasite thing.
Right.
But this is parasitical for the soul. This is like your greater being. This is like a diminishment of like your spark. And I was always under the notion before that, you're born whole, you come into this life perfect, and this is just a physical condensate of your spiritual being and all that. And I'm finding no. It's actually, you come here so your spirit and your soul can grow.
Right.
As you display courage, as you actually fight the good fight, this is like a deepening of your sanctity. It's like it actually deepens your capacity to travel in those realms. Has that been your experience?
That's exactly right. I could not have said it better. That's exactly right, Christopher. And going back to just before we were talking about the flat earth, two of the biggest lies that they told humanity to disconnect them from their spiritual connections, from their divine, is heliocentrism and Darwinism.
Right.
Right? Those two things make you inconsequential.
Exactly.
You're not special. You're not a creation of a creator. You're just basically, you're just here, just a bunch of stuff just kind of formed, and just by sheer luck, it all came together, and here you are, and when people buy into that stuff, and I'm trying to connect this back to what you were just saying, when people believe this lie, when they believe the lie of heliocentrism, when they believe the lie of Darwinism, of evolution, then you have relegated yourself, you evolved from a monkey, okay? You are, at your core, a monkey. Is that what you are? Is that what you want to believe you are? If you want to believe that everything just started from a big bang, and that everything just miraculously just came together and formed, and that there's no grand architect, there's no creator, there's no God, let me tell you something. If you're going to believe those things, then you are severely impacting your ability to understand existence, to learn the lessons that you were just talking about. This is the thing. They don't want your soul to progress. So in order not to do that, they create these mechanisms. They create this deception and these lies in order to keep you in a box. And I really wish that humanity would awaken and wake up to that fact. And you still have people sitting there. I had something on Facebook the other day. I put a video up that had to do with, it was a great video on why, evolution is just a big bunch of nonsense. And I got attacked every which way from Sunday. Oh, what are you, backwards? Evolution is proven. Evolution's not proven, folks. It's not. It's why it's called a theory. The same thing with heliocentrism. I'm a flat earther. I have been ridiculed and attacked for believing or starting to believe based upon my research, right? It's not just like I just feel it. It's the way I want to feel, so therefore I am. No. A lot of homework, a lot of research has gone in behind understanding all the things you were talking about with the flat earth. I've come to the same conclusions, Christopher. But here's the thing, right? People will ridicule because of their indoctrination. And this is why it's very difficult to move off the dime. This is why it's very difficult to make change, because people are entrenched. They're inculcated. They're so cemented in around the lies and the deception that many will never break out. In this lifetime, they will not break out.
So maybe this is how we should end the conversation, because what you just said is so important. It's the growth mindset versus the narcissistic mindset. When I was in college, I had a professor that was revealing some of the first conspiracies to our class, and it was a class of 400 people. I went to a really large university. And I was flabbergasted because I was looking around the auditorium and nobody was triggered except for me. And I was like, wait a minute, this is like the Spanish-American War was incited through a black flag operation. Like, he didn't use any of that terminology, but that was the first time I'd ever even, considered our government doing anything evil, right? Like,
Right.
I was tried and true, red, white, and blue all the way to the core.
Me too.
And so I had this professor, giving the background information to the Spanish-American War, and it was obvious. It was just fucking obvious. It was obvious. How could the entire U.S. Pacific Fleet be around the Philippines as a peaceful mission in Havana, Cuba, where the boats had 30 tons of TNT just explode? Why on a peaceful mission would you have 30 tons of TNT? And I go to his after hours, his post-class hours, and I'm just like asking questions. And then I felt so guilty. And he had this smirk on his face. And I'm like, I was apologizing to him. I'm like, I'm sorry I'm taking so much of your time, but I don't understand. Like, what? And And he goes, Chris, never apologize for asking questions.
Good for him.
He goes, the fact that you are willing to drop your old ideas and ask the question is so rare that it actually proves your intelligence. He goes, almost every child I know, every person that comes through my doors, and I teach thousands of kids a year, are afraid to ask the question. They're just afraid because they're arrogant.
Right.
They're just too arrogant to go ahead and drop something that they think they know to go to a new region of their brain, right? And he goes, never, ever feel bad that you ask questions. And, I praise you, Mike, for asking the question, man. You're out there, you're doing the good work. And I really appreciate our friendship, and I appreciate having you as a sounding board, because I really think this is the most important thing that's going on. I really do. And the more, people like us are actually out there, expressing our courage, I think the better. I really think it helps things. I don't think it hurts things.
Yeah, absolutely. That story you just told, Christopher, what was very evident there was, maybe the conditioning of our lives made you feel guilty about asking certain questions. I mean, feel guilty about, well, maybe I'm not getting something, or I have a thought here. Maybe it's not appropriate to ask this question. I'm not saying that was your case, but a lot of people think that way. So that kind of keeps them in a box. I'm thinking that doesn't sound right, but I'm afraid to ask the question because I might be ridiculed, or, they're going to think I'm dumb because I'm not thinking the way they're thinking. That's programming, folks. That's conditioning. Ask the question. If it doesn't make sense, use your God-given gift of intellect and reason and ask the question. Plain and
awesome.
Simple, right?
That's awesome. Mr. Mike, where can people find your work?
Well, you can go to my blog. You can go to sageofquay.com. Quay is Quay. Or you can go to my YouTube channel where I do radio shows like Christopher does, and that's the Sage of Quay Radio Hour. So you just type that into YouTube and you'll find me. And if you want to see me for hypnosis, you can go to imaginehypnotics.com, and I'm out of the Raleigh area in North Carolina.
Thank you once again, BioCharisma family, for listening this week and paying attention. Next week, we're going to have Chad Fez Gates. He's a world explorer, entrepreneur, incredible artist. He builds these really funky structures all over the world. He's just a great guy to listen to and get inspired by. And we'll also be having Sophia Smallstorm. So she's a little powder keg of a woman that has a lot going on. So thank you once again. If you like our work, like us on Facebook and subscribe on iTunes and or Stitcher. Thank you very much, and see you next week.
Make it.